नमों विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna. So thank you all very much for joining today's session. So we'll be discussing from this book Harinam Chintamani starting from today for the next 16 weeks. So hopefully Krishna willing we will be able to do it. So I will start with a brief overview. I will just share the screen. Just hold on for a second. Actually, we have been discussing in our Brahmachari Ashram here at Govardhani College. We have been discussing Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, so many such books for Chaitanya Charitamrita for so many years. For almost last 10 years, every day we meet and we have been discussing. For a long time, discussing about the holy name was not within my comfort zone. I was just wondering how would be, it's easy to discuss philosophy, but the holy name has never been a very comfortable thing to discuss. What do you discuss about the holy name? And generally, when people discuss about holy name, many times you get to hear about the techniques of how to chant the holy name. And honestly speaking, I have never been much comfortable with such kind of discussions. So before maybe 3-4 years, we had completed Bhagavad Gita a few times, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Then we decided, okay, let's start other books. Let's start with Bhaktivinoda Thakur's writings. And somehow, devotees inspired, let's start Harinam Chintamani. And I said, well, okay, let's start. So then when we started the book, I was hoping that Bhaktivinoda Thakur would give a lot of tips about how to concentrate, how to chant the holy name, like that. But interestingly, except for 3-4 points, Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the whole book does not talk anything about techniques of chanting. And interestingly, when we studied Chaitanya Charitamrita also, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his teachings hardly speaks anything about techniques of chanting the holy name. He mentions only one aspect of chanting the holy name, which is avoid offenses. So, and in this book also, chapter after chapter, interestingly, Bhaktivinoda Thakur does not speak anything about techniques of chanting the holy name. I don't mean to say that people should not focus on techniques for chanting the holy name. They should, because as they say, attention to details is a sign of love. So definitely, if we have love for the holy name, we will definitely try to be very attentive to the details. So definitely we should be, but the point is that has not been a comfort zone for me personally. Even though I have tried few techniques which I am comfortable with, I try to practice. Therefore here, if you see, as I mentioned, Bhaktivinoda Thakur hardly speaks anything about the techniques. Mostly he focuses on the offenses to the holy name, right? So we will see what this book is all about, an overview of the book. Some of this content was already shared with you in the introduction, but I will just make few additional points here. Actually, if you see in the Chaitanya Charitamrita also, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave a very simple formula for re-establishing our lost relationship with Krishna. Ultimately, the purpose of life is to re-establish our lost relationship with Krishna. And in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara, even though we do speak about Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam, we do talk about Navada Bhakti, we do talk about the 64 limbs as Srila Rupa Goswami mentions in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. But interestingly, it is mentioned by our Acharyas, there is that of the 64 limbs, there are 63 limbs only. But there is one limb which is not Anga but Angi, the possessor of that limb. Right? So, just like we say, Krishna is not an Amsha, he is an Amshi. And all the other Ramadi Murti Shukala Niyamena Tishtan Nanavataram Akarod Bhuvaneshu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Parama Pumanyo Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. We hear that. So, Ramadi Murti Shukala Niyamena Tishtan, all the other avatars like Rama, Narsingha, Matsya, Kurma, Varaha Ityadi, they are considered to be Amsha of Krishna, who is considered to be the Amshi. He is the possessor of the limbs. He is not just a limb. So similarly, the holy name is said to be not one of the limbs of service. It is actually the possessor of all the other limbs. That has been the emphasis of our Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes, Nama bina kichu nahi ko aara, chauda bhuvana maje. So in these 14 worlds, apart from the holy name, there is nothing that is really true. Right? So, therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu interestingly gives a very simple formula, and in fact the last chapter of the book that we will be discussing actually mentions how do you re-establish your lost relationship with Krishna through chanting of the holy names. Nothing else. Just by chanting, how does one re-establish one's relationship with Krishna? This is not Prabhupada writing. Because many times Prabhupada, people say that Prabhupada has just given the ABCDs of Krishna consciousness. But in reality, that's exactly what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has also given. And all the Acharyas like Raghunath Das Goswami, Srila Rupa Goswami has emphasized the same thing. Right? You re-establish your relationship with Krishna just by chanting the holy name. So chant the holy names and avoid the 10 offenses is the formula that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given. And we will see some examples from Chaitanya Charitamrita itself. Okay. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is mentioned, Bahujanma kare yadi shravana kirtan tabuta na paye Krishna pade premadan. So, it is mentioned, Bahujanma kare yadi shravana kirtan. One may chant the holy names or hearing the Krishna Katha for many, many lifetimes. Tabutana paye Krishna pade premadan. But still one cannot attain the lotus feet of Krishna. Love towards the lotus feet of Krishna. Why? Prabhupada explains it in his translation. If one is infested with the 10 offenses in chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, despite his endeavor to chant the holy name for many births, he will not get love of Godhead. That is the ultimate goal of this chanting. Right? So Prabhupada says this. This is Prabhupada's explanation in Chaitanya Charitamrita also. The same point is mentioned. Then another verse from the Adi Leela. Krishna nama kare aparadera vichar, Krishna balile aparadhira nahaye vikar. He says, Krishna nama kare aparadera vichar. While chanting the holy names, one should consider these 10 offenses. What the offenses are, how one can avoid the 10 offenses. Krishna balile aparadira na haye vikar. Therefore, simply by chanting Hare Krishna, if one's heart is filled with offenses, one does not become ecstatic. So therefore, even though it is mentioned, chanting of one holy name is capable of destroying, millions of lifetimes of sins accumulated, and it is capable of giving Krishna prem and all that. But this is provided one should be free of offenses. In fact, in a book called Bhakti Sandarbha, Srila Jiva Goswami says that even Bhakti Abhas, when performed without offenses, can give results. But even proper bhakti, when performed with offenses, cannot give the results. Okay. So now Bhakti Abhas means what? Bhakti Abhas means accidentally performing an act of devotion, accidentally eating some prasadam, accidentally chanting the holy name, accidentally, like Ajamil chanted the name of his son. It was an accidental chant. He did not even intend to call Krishna, call Narayan, right? So that is called Bhakti Abhas. Abhas means a shadow. Shadow means it does not have the substance. It just has a faint form, but it has no substance. So such people don't have any bhakti. They don't have any faith in bhakti also. That is called as Bhakti Abhas. But even that Bhakti Abhas, when performed without offenses, it can give results. But even proper bhakti with faith, when one performs the devotional practices, but when that practice is infested with offenses, one will not get results. But that does not mean that the holy name is incapable of giving the result. But the point is that the holy name is not obliged to give the results. Right? So that is the point. The holy name is not obliged to give results. Right? We are supposed to be the servants of the holy name. The holy name is not supposed to be our servant. So, it cannot be there at the beck and call of the chanter. The chanter is supposed to be at the beck and call of the holy name. Holy name is the master, chanter is the servant. Right? So therefore, the holy name, when it senses an attitude of offense, the holy name does not choose to respond. But the holy name is fully capable. That is the point. Further, Madhya Leela. Aparadana hi sadalao Krishnanam etabali prabhu aila sarvabhaumastan. This is in the episode of Amoga, the son-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, offending Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he gets typhoid and he is at the verge of death. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to know about it, he comes and touches Amoga. Amoga gets cured, and then while leaving, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, "Aparada nahi sada lao Krishnanam, etabali Prabhu aila sarvabhaumastan." So he tells Amoga, "My dear Amoga, just do one thing. chant the holy name and avoid offenses. And saying this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left the home of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Further, in the Antya Leela it is mentioned, Bhajane Ramadhya Shreshta Navavida Bhakti Krishna Prema Krishna Dite Dhare Mahashakti. Bhajanera Madhya Shreshta Navavida Bhakti. Of all the various kinds of practices, the topmost practice is Navada Bhakti. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. Krishna Prema Krishna Dite Dhare Mahashakti. And this Navada Bhakti has the capacity to give Krishna Prem and Krishna. Dhare Mahashakti. Right? Tara Madhya Sarva Shreshta Nama Sankirtan Niraparade Nama Laile Paye Premadan. Tara Madhya Sarva Shreshta Nama Sankirtan. Of these 9 processes, the best is chanting the holy name of the Lord. Niraparade Nama Laile Paye Premadan. And if one chants the holy name while avoiding the 10 kinds of offenses, one very easily obtains the most valuable treasure, which is Premadan, love of Godhead. Further in Antya Leela it says, Aparada Chadikara Krishna Sankirtan Achirata Pabe Tabe Krishnera Charan. Aparada Chadikara Krishna Sankirtan. Again and again the same point Chaitanya Mahaprabhu keeps repeating. Just avoid the offenses and chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Achirata Pabe Tabe Krishnera Charan. Very soon you will attain the lotus feet of Krishna. Right? So the point is that again and again the same point. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's formula is very simple. So just try to avoid the 10 offenses, he says. But interestingly, if you see, it seems easier said than done. Avoiding the 10 offenses. In our day-to-day dealings with devotees, scriptures, the holy name itself, the spiritual master, etc., we often struggle to avoid the 10 offenses that have been prescribed in the scriptures. And we can also practically see our own spiritual process dwindling due to our inability to avoid the 10 offenses. And sometimes, having committed the offense, we do not know how to rectify the offense. Sometimes we do not even know whether we are committing the offense or not. What does it mean to commit this particular offense? We do not know generally. So these are like struggles that we often face when it comes to, especially, of course, these 10 offenses are not just offenses against the holy name, but they are these 10 are offenses against Bhakti Devi herself. Right? So, therefore, in this book, actually, if you see, it's essentially a glorification of the holy name and description of the 10 offenses, how to avoid the offenses, what does it mean to commit those offenses, if one has already committed the offense, how we can rectify the offense. So this book is very, very essential book, because this is the process that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given, right? So, Niraparada Namalele Paye Premadan. Just if you take the holy name without the offenses, you can attain the lotus feet of Krishna, or you can attain the treasure of Krishna Prem. So, the point is that, so therefore this book is very much to the point in addressing these 10 offenses. So, if you want to describe what is the content of this book, Harinam Chintamani, it is just the first 2 verses of Shikshashtakam. Right? Cheto Darpanamarjanam, which describes about the various glories of the holy name. So the first chapter talks about that. Right? And the second chapter talks about how does one attain, how does one receive the holy name. So the second chapter talks about that. We will of course see the later sections, how the whole thing is divided. Okay, so basically, what is this book? What is the source of this book? The content of this book. What is the source of the content of this book? Right? Is it from Chaitanya Charitamrit? Is it from Chaitanya Bhagavat? So what is the source of this book? Did Srila Haridas Thakur write this book, or is it a fictional book written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur? What exactly is this? Okay, so let's try to understand this. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself mentions in the introduction to this book that this book, Harinam Chintamani, is a product of an extensive research conducted by none other than our beloved Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He did extensive research. So actually the devotees approached Bhaktivinoda Thakur and they said, is there one book, because in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara there is so much emphasis on chanting the holy name, is there one book in which the science of chanting the holy name and avoiding the offenses is compiled? So Bhaktivinoda Thakur approached various places from where he could compile something based on Srila Haridas Thakur's teachings. So he very carefully compiled an anthology of various writings describing Srila Haridas Thakur's preachings about the holy name, written by many of his disciples and followers. Okay, so many of the followers and disciples of Srila Haridas Thakur had compiled writings based on his teachings. Then, of course, the book is there. It is not that we can pick up any book and start studying from it. Okay, so one has to know whether it is a bona fide book, whether the conclusions presented in the book are bona fide or not, whether the author is bona fide. All these things are important actually. So that is exactly what Bhaktivinoda Thakur did. He then painstakingly checked all these books for their Siddhantic correctness, whether it is according to our Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta or not. So that he first checked. Okay. So then, in this way, he rejected all the works which were not in line with the proper Gaudiya Vaishnava. Okay. So then he sifted out the apasiddhantic writings, and then from the remaining bona fide writings he extracted the most essential teachings of Srila Haridas Thakur about the process of chanting in the form of this book Harinam Chintamani. So you can say this book Harinam Chintamani is like the distilled presentation of the teachings about the holy name by Srila Haridas Thakur. This book is essentially a conversation between Srila Haridas Thakur and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Various times they met and they had a conversation which was compiled by some of the followers of Srila Haridas Thakur, or Srila Haridas Thakur shared it with his disciples and his disciples shared, or someone heard and compiled. But this was based on the compilations by the followers and disciples of Srila Haridas Thakur, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur personally proofread, collected the teachings, compiled it in the form of this book. Okay. So now, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lived for a very short duration of time, just 48 years, right? And of which first 24 years he was a Grihastha, then the next 24 years he took up to sannyas. And in that very short duration of time, he actually involved himself in presenting the conclusions of our Shastras to various important devotees, right? So Mahaprabhu took great care to present the proper spiritual teachings to the living entities, but he had his own unique way of accomplishing this. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had his own unique way of teaching. So what he would do, he actually made various devotees explain the different aspects of devotional service while he sat and listened in great bliss. So this is explained like that the sun extracts water from the ocean and it showers the water back in the ocean only in the form of clouds, right? So, so the various devotees whom Chaitanya Mahaprabhu empowered to speak about the various aspects of rasa or the bhakti siddhanta or the glories of the holy name, the source of all these teachings were Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would not speak. He would ask Srila Haridas Thakur to speak about the holy name. He would ask Ramananda Rai to speak about bhakti rasa. And he would hear as if he didn't know. But it is compared that it is mentioned that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the ocean. And sometimes it is seen that the clouds shower water in the ocean. But actually the clouds accumulated that water from the ocean only and they shower it back. So in the same way, it is mentioned that through Ramananda Rai's mouth, he taught the concept of rasa. Through the mouth of Sarvabhauma, he taught the real principle of liberation. Through the mouth of Rupa Goswami in Vrindavan, he taught the details of rasa. And through the mouth of Srila Haridas Thakur, he taught the full glories of the holy names, right? So, this book is divided into 16 chapters, is a compilation of this conversation that happened between Srila Haridas Thakur and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, and of course, we will be covering the course in 16 weeks at the pace of one chapter a week. More or less, the early chapters may take some additional time, and some later chapters I may cover even 2 chapters in 1 week. So on an average, we may be able to cover 1 chapter a week, but today most likely we may not be able to complete the chapter, but whatever we can complete, we will try to complete. Okay. So a brief overview of what we will be completing. Week 1 is the first chapter which talks about the glories of the holy name. We will try to understand the supreme position or the process of chanting the holy name in our Gaudiya Vaishnava sadhana, right? Then in the second week, we will try to understand what is the qualification to receive and how does one receive the holy name from one's guru. In the third week, we will discuss about the stages of chanting the holy name. What is this Nama Parad? What is this Nama Bhas? What is this Shuddha Nam? And how does one navigate through these various stages? Briefly, we may not have a very extensive time to cover this topic, but at least whatever we can, we will try to briefly cover. And of course, before starting this whole thing, I would like to confess that I am by no standard, I have aced the chanting of holy names. I have my own struggles, even though so many wonderful lessons are taught by Srila Haridas Thakur in this book, it is not that I very effortlessly I am able to practice all these teachings. I am struggling, but I am trying. But one of the ways I try to inspire myself is by sharing these teachings with others so that it creates a sense of accountability in my own sadhana. So at least because I have spoken about it, I may try to practice it myself. And honestly speaking, I have discussed this topic few times with devotees and it really helps. It is a very nice way of reminding oneself that yes, what is the expectation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? What does Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expect from you? Try to follow. What are the standards that Srila Haridas Thakur has set for chanting the holy name? So when we discuss it, at least it gives us an opportunity to ruminate on these teachings, and maybe at least a part of it we will try to follow. So with that mood I am sharing. So please don't think that I am an expert in this subject matter, but I am just sharing what Srila Haridas Thakur has shared in this conversation with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so that we all can collectively make an endeavor to apply these teachings. Right? So on the third week, we will try to understand what these terminologies mean. What is Namaparad, what is Namabhas, what is Shuddha Nam, and how do you navigate through these stages, and are there stages beyond Shuddha Nam also? Like that we will discuss. And then week 4 to week 13, we will be learning to identify, avoid and rectify the 10 offenses to the holy name. Okay. So how do you identify the offense? How do you know, Prabhuji, is this an offense or not? Is this Namaparad? Is this Vaishnavaparad? Is this considered Vaishnavaparad or not? You know, how do we identify? Then how do we avoid? How do we become immune to committing these offenses? And the third thing is, if we realize that we have already committed, or if we realize that I am committing constantly these offenses, how do we rectify these offenses? Okay. So, and in the 14th week, we will discuss about Seva Aparad. How do we identify Seva Aparad? How do we avoid Seva Aparad? And if we have already committed Seva Aparad, how do we rectify Seva Aparad? Right? So these things we will discuss in the 14th week. And in the 15th and 16th week, we will try to discuss about learning the art of re-establishing a relationship with Krishna through the process of chanting the holy name. How just by chanting the holy name, our acharyas have described that we can re-establish our lost relationship with Krishna. So this is what we will be discussing in the 16 weeks. Okay. So that is like a brief overview of what we will be seeing. Okay, before we actually start, I will pause for a few seconds to see if there are some quick questions. You can please raise your hands and I can unmute you. Maybe 2-3 questions we will take, or some reflections, some thoughts that you might want to share. You can please raise your hands, and then we can move ahead. So I see 2 hands up. Harsh Prabhu, I am unmuting you. You can please speak.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisance.
Just hold on for a second. Hold on for a second. Hold on for a second. Yes, Prabhu, you can speak.
Is it audible, Prabhuji?
I am not able to hear you, Harsh Prabhu. Are you speaking?
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Speak.
Yes, is it coming, Prabhu?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. Just a small question, Prabhuji. Like you mentioned, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, while compiling this book, so he removed some of the aspects which were not in line with Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta.
Correct.
So, did Haridas Thakur mentioned those things also which are not in line with Gaudiya Vaishnava? So I just wanted to clarify.
No. They were probably compiled by someone who did not perfectly understand our sampradaya. So just like they probably heard it from Haridas Thakur, or they heard it from some followers of Haridas Thakur, or in the name of Haridas Thakur, they wrote whatever they wanted to write. So it could have been either one of the things. So we do not know. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur evaluated it for the Siddhantic correctness, and he found that this is not according to our Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta. He rejected it. So it's not definitely Srila Haridas Thakur did not write any apasiddhantic things. So it is just some of the followers or so-called followers who actually wrote something in the name of Haridas Thakur, like that.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay. Tarun Kapoor Prabhu, I am unmuting you, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu, I have a small question in terms of that. Will you be sharing this presentation with us?
Yeah, I'll be sharing. I can share the presentation. After every presentation, I will share the PPT or the PDFs I can share.
On the Telegram group itself?
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I'm new to Telegram, so I'll ask the organizer some way or other. We will reach out to you and share the presentation.
Okay, fair. Thank you so much.
Madhav Kumar Prabhu, I'm unmuting you, Prabhu.
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Prabhuji, my question is, as you were mentioning, that if one chants without bhakti and without offenses also, offenselessly, then it will bring result.
Yeah.
And if one chants with faith, but with offenses also, then it will not bring any result.
Not that it will not bring any result. It will bring result which is proportional to our strength of faith, and if the strength of faith is high and the offenses are very minor, then it will give results. But if the strength of faith is very weak and the offenses are very serious, then it will definitely not give any result. So it depends on that. It's not that there won't be any result, but definitely the results will be mitigated by the strength of the offenses.
Okay. But I was wondering, Prabhuji, how come that with faith one can be offensive, and without any faith one can be offenseless also?
No, without any faith, so that what it means is that person has not committed any prior offenses to any of these 10 offenses, or especially Vaishnava Ninda. Such things he has not committed in his previous lives also. So sometimes in this life, we may not commit any offense in this life, but in our prior lives, we might have committed offenses. And if those offenses have not yet been removed, the residual offenses can lead to, it will not lead to the full manifestation of the effect of our practice of devotional service. Like that.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay. Priya Mataji, I am unmuting you.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji. Actually, I also had the same question which Prabhuji put forward previously regarding what you said about Bhakti Abhas can, without offenses, can give result, but Bhakti with faith cannot give. So that was answered, but I wanted to know, Prabhuji, when we initially come into Bhakti, Krishna consciousness, that chanting and the chanting we do now, there is so much of difference. Like earlier, you're so much of enthused and all. So at least in my case, I feel I was chanting much better. So how can we explain this, Prabhuji?
Yeah, it is. One reason is probably offenses only, because when we knowingly commit offenses, then it becomes more serious. Or there are other reasons. During the course of our discussion, we will discuss that also. The initial days, it's quite possible that even our chanting was actually, or that enthusiasm that we perceived was actually false enthusiasm also. That is also possible, which is called as Utsahamai stage by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. But we will discuss this in little more detail when we go down the line. We will discuss this.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare.
Okay, Param Dayalu Prabhu, I am unmuting you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam Prabhu. My question is, Prabhu, how do you know, Prabhu, I am doing chanting, offenseless chanting?
Of course, that is the rest of the book.
Okay.
In the rest of the book, that's what we are going to cover, actually.
Okay. One thing, Prabhu, can you share, Prabhu, weekly videos, Prabhu, videos also?
That I think they are planning to share. We'll keep you posted. Stay in touch keep checking your Telegram thing, and they'll post it there.
Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, okay, so many hands up, even though we have not yet started discussing the subject matter. So this is what I actually feared. Okay, my fear is coming true. Anyway, but okay, Krishna Rupa Mataji, I'm unmuting you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, the book that I have actually, the Harinam Chintamani book, that book has 15 chapters and we are discussing 16 chapters. So I'm just a bit not clear on that this book
Okay.
has 15
I
chapters.
will clarify. The 16th chapter sometimes is mentioned as an addendum. In some chapters, it is not exactly mentioned. But some other editions have the 16th chapter as an addendum. But we may, if time permits, we will cover the 16th chapter. If not, we may not cover it also.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Okay, I think we may not have time to take. Okay, one last question we will take, and then the rest of the questions we will take after we cover some more portions. Prithviraj Prabhu, I am unmuting you. After that, we may have to move ahead. Prabhu, you can please unmute yourself and speak. Please, yeah.
Hey Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanavad Pranam.
Prabhu.
Yeah, Prabhuji, it's not a question, it's just a sharing. Means I very much like the way you reconcile. Holy name is not incapable of giving result. It is not obliged to give result. So that is basically a very good statement I find here. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I am really sorry. I may not be able to take because I still see some 5-6 hands up. So please hold on. We will cover some more portions and then I will again pause for some questions and then we will take. Okay. So kindly forgive me and I will have to move on right now. Okay. So you can put down your hands and when we open it up again, you can again raise the hands. Okay. So now the next theme that we will discuss is why the process of chanting is so important. Okay. So why is the process of chanting so important? So, okay, just hold on. Okay. In the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Tapasvibhyo diko yogi jnanibhyopi matodikaha karmibhyascha diko yogi tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. So he has already discussed in the second from the 2nd chapter onwards, he has discussed Karma Yoga. 3rd chapter, he has more detailed discussed Karma Yoga. 3rd and 4th chapters. 5th chapter, he has described Jnana Yoga. And in the 6th chapter, he has described Ashtanga Yoga. Bhakti Yoga, he has not yet spoken about. Maybe here and there, 1-2 verses he has touched, but he has not seriously discussed Bhakti Yoga yet. And at the end of this discussion on Ashtanga Yoga, he speaks this verse. He says, Tapasvibhyo diko yogi. The yogi, the Ashtanga yogi, is better than a tapasvi. Jnanibhyopi matodikaha. And he is better than a Jnana yogi. An Ashtanga yogi is better than a tapasvi. He is better than a Jnana yogi. Karmibhyascha diko yogi. And he is better than a Karma yogi. Tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. Therefore, become a yogi, O Arjuna. This is the conclusion. Of course, there are some details. We will not go into the details of this, right? But he has not told that the yogi is better than a bhakta, right? So in the next verse, 6.47, the last verse of the 6th chapter, is like a sutra It's like a sutra verse of the whole Bhagavad Gita describing the process of pure devotional service. Okay. Yoginam api sarvesham madgaten antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo mataha. So Krishna says, me mataha, this is my opinion, O Arjuna, that yaha shraddhavan mam bhajate, that he who worships me with faith. So here he uses the word bhajate, right? So bhajate means worships. So now, while describing this verse, Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan in his commentary quotes a verse from Garuda Puran. I will just write that verse. Okay. So he says, Bhaja iti eshavai dhatu sevayam parikirtitaha. Tasmad seva budair prokta bhakti shabdena bhuyasi. Okay, this is a very powerful verse, right? Bhaja iti eshavai dhatu. Dhatu means the root word. The word bhajan, bhakti, comes from the same root word, which is bhaja dhatu. Okay. What is the meaning of this bhaja dhatu? He says, sevayam parikirtitaha. The bhaja dhatu indicates seva, right? Service. Tasmad, therefore, budair prokta, intelligent people conclude that bhakti shabdena seva bhuyasi. By the word bhakti, it indicates seva, service. Service means that which is performed with a mood of pleasing the person whom we are trying to serve. Otherwise, it is business, right? So service means that which is done with a mood of pleasing others. Okay. So therefore, the word bhaja, from bhaja comes bhajan, bhakti. All these words come from the bhaja dhatu, right? And even the words vibhajan, right? So vibhajan means to divide. Okay. So that also comes from the bhaja dhatu. So you divide something so that you can share it with others, right? So basically, if I have a piece of cake, then if I try to divide it into 4 pieces, which means I have a desire to share it with 3 other people whom I like, whom I have a desire to please, right? So, therefore, bhaja dhatu, from which bhakti also comes, means to share or sacrifice. So when I am sharing means that which actually belongs to me, I am willing to sacrifice it for others. So bhakti means we are sacrificing for Krishna. We have some time, and a part of that time we are trying to sacrifice for Krishna. We have some resources which we are willing to sacrifice for Krishna, right? We have some energy which we are willing to sacrifice for Krishna. So therefore, the word bhajate, worships, means to sacrifice, okay, to worship, to serve, all these things. So therefore, even though the word bhakti is not directly mentioned here, he says bhajate, yaha shraddhavan mam bhajate. one who worships me with faith. Okay. And he says, Mad gatena antaratmana. Mad gatena antaratmana means with his mind attached to me. So, actually, if you see, whether one is a karma yogi or a jnana yogi or an ashtanga yogi, all of them have to worship Krishna. Krishna in the sense they have to worship some Vishnu Tattva, right? So, otherwise, just performing karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga without worshipping the Supreme Lord will not give any result. Bhagavatam says in so many verses, right? Tapasvino, Danapara, Yashasvino, Manasvino, Mantravida, Sumangala, Kshemam na Vindanti Vinaya Darpanam, Tasmai Shubhadra Shravase Namo Namaha. Shukadeva Goswami says in the second canto, one may be a tapasvi or a Danapara, he may give in lot of charity, he may be a Jnana yogi, he may be a Nishkama Karma yogi, he may be an Ashtanga yogi, but if there is no worship of the Supreme Lord, Kshemam na Vindanti, it will not give any result. Right? There are so many such verses. Right? Naishkarmyam api achyuta bhava varjitam nashopate jnanam alam niranjanam. Kuta punashashvad abhadrameshware nacharpitam karma yadapya karanam. Narada Muni tells Vyasadeva in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Naishkarmyam api achyuta bhava varjitam. Even one may perform jnana yoga which has no desire for material benefit, but if that is devoid of worship of Achyuta, na shobhate, it does not give any result. Similarly, Nishkama Karma Yoga, Sakama Karma Yoga, like that. Right? So, Madgatena Antaratmana means, while all of them worship Krishna, but a Bhakti Yogi worships Krishna to attain Krishna. So everyone, while a Karma Yogi worships Krishna to attain Swarga, he is Swargapara. That is why the Bhagavad Gita says, Kamatmanaha Swargapara Janma Karma Phala Pradam Kriya Vishesha Bahulam Bhogaishwarya Gatim Prati. So they are called as Karma Para or Swarga Para. They are dedicated to Swarga. Their meditation is on Swarga. There are other Jnana Yogis who are Moksha Para. Munir Moksha Parayana. They are Moksha Parayana. They are meditating on Moksha. Right? But a devotee, because everyone meditates on their goal. Their most cherished desire is what they meditate upon. Right? So, so therefore, by mentioning the word Madgatena Antaratmana, with mind attached to me, indicates the nature of his bhakti, that it is Jnana Karmadi Anavritam. It is not covered by Jnana Karma. He is not taking the shelter of Jnana and Karma. He is just meditating on Krishna, on pleasing Krishna. Okay. So he says, Yoginam api sarvesham yukta tamaha. He is considered to be greater than all types of yogis. Okay. So, therefore, you can see, while the other Karma Yogis, Jnana Yogis, Ashtanga Yogis, they worship Krishna to get some other result. Right? This is just like someone, you may have a nurse, let's say a pediatric nurse, who has learned to take care of newly born children in the gynec ward, gynecology ward, where newly born children are there. So she has learned to take care of them. So she has studied her books, nursing books, and she has had practical training which she had which she had taken from others, and based on that she tries to take care of the children. On the other hand, you may have a mother who has just given birth to a child. She takes care of her child also, right? So while the nurse, she may be perfectly practicing what she has learned, but while meditating on, I should do it perfectly, otherwise they may remove me from my job and I may not get my salary. That is her meditation. Whereas when the mother is taking care of the child, she is probably doing the same thing, but her meditation is how I can please the child, right? So that's why if you see Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suhridam Sarvabhutanam Gyatva Mam Shantim Richati. Krishna says, right, in Bhagavad Gita. So he says, a Karma Yogi, how does he see Krishna? Bhokta. Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam. Yagya Bhokta. Okay. And I am performing various sacrifices, and this personality is the person who is going to accept the sacrifice and give me my result in return. And a Jnana Yogi, he is tapobuk. He performs lot of tapasya. Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam. Tapasam Bhokta. I am performing all these tapasya so that this personality becomes pleased and he gives me liberation in return. And the Ashtanga Yogi, how does he see Krishna? Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. You know, so he sees Krishna as the controller of this whole universe. That super soul who is the controller of this whole universe, which I am worshipping, that is this Krishna. So he sees Krishna as Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Okay. And then, how does a devotee see Krishna? Right? He sees him as Suhridam Sarvabhutanam. He sees Krishna as the most well-wishing friend. Okay. So therefore, while a Karma Yogi, he sees him as Yagya book and he wants Swarga in return. A Jnana Yogi sees him as Tapo book and he wants liberation in return. And Ashtanga Yogi sees him as Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, so he may want some Siddhi in return. Okay, some mystic powers. Whereas when the devotee sees him as Suhridam Sarvabhutanam, the most well-wishing friend of all living entities, he is inspired to befriend Krishna. He wants a relationship with Krishna, nothing else. Right? So what do we want from our parents? Okay. So we want we just want a relationship with our parents, right? We don't want anything in return. The same way the parents want our love and affection. They don't want anything in return in one sense actually. Genuine parents and genuine children, they don't want anything else from each other. They just want the affection of each other, that's all. Right? Similarly, when the devotee realizes that Krishna is Suhridam Sarvabhutanam, all that he wants from Krishna is a relationship, that's all. Right? So, therefore, in our Sampradaya, there are multiple ways of establishing this relationship. Right? Just hold on for a second. I will just add one more slide here. Just hold on for 1 second. Okay, so in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara, there are ways of establishing this relationship. This relationship with Krishna. What are the ways of establishing a relationship with Krishna? The Acharya say, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, right? Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam, right? So 9 ways are given. Okay. So, therefore, so even though 9 ways are there to establish a relationship with Krishna, in one of the 5 rasas, what are the 5 rasas? Shanta, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. Right? So there are 5 different ways of establishing a relationship with Krishna, 5 different moods. You can establish a relationship as a servant. You can establish a relationship as his friend. You can establish a relationship as his elderly parent, or you can even establish a relationship with him as a gopi or a manjari in conjugal mood. In any of these ways, one can establish a relationship with Krishna. But of all these various ways, the chief process that is mentioned, that is Kirtanam actually. So even these 9 angas are there, the Angi, the possessor of all these 9 limbs is Kirtanam, and especially Harer Namanu Kirtanam. This is considered to be the emperor of all the other limbs. Right? So, so this is the conclusion also. Even in the beginning of Bhagavatam only, Shukadeva Goswami, in the very 11th verse that he speaks, he concludes this. Yoginam Nripanirnitam Harer Namanu Kirtanam. So, this has been concluded that chanting the holy name of the Lord is the highest of all the other processes. Right? So, therefore, we want to establish a relationship with Krishna in one of these 5 rasas, and the best means of establishing that relationship with Krishna is through chanting the holy names. And towards the end of this chapter, actually, once we gradually try to understand what are the 10 offenses, how we can overcome those 10 offenses, towards the end, we will also see how by chanting the holy name and gradually progressing just by the process of chanting the holy name, how gradually one can establish a relationship with Krishna in one of these 5 rasas is described. Okay. So, therefore, it is very important that as devotees, the only reason why we practice bhakti and especially chant the holy names is for the purpose of establishing a relationship with Krishna in one of these 5 rasas. Okay, at this point, I will again pause for few minutes. Maybe I will take 3-4 questions and then we will continue further. Okay. Gauranga Purushottam Prabhu, I am unmuting you. Gauranga.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavad Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu, Dandavad.
Prabhuji, actually, I have heard also, and how it is that this Kirtanam include the all Navada Bhakti?
How is it that Kirtanam?
This involve the all the 9 process. If you are doing one Kirtan, then is all 9 devotional service will be manifested at a time. How is?
I did not say that. I mentioned that if you do Kirtan is the Anga, Angi, he is the possessor of all the other limbs, which means he is the king. What it means is, along with the other practices, Kirtan should also parallelly go on. That's what it means.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Tamogna Mandal, I am unmuting you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandamat Pranam.
Dandavat Prabhu.
Prabhu, my question is that, Prabhu, as we are all into Krishna consciousness now, and we are slowly trying to uplift our consciousness towards Lord Krishna. So we all, after 2 or 3 years, when we are devotionally inclined, we get kanthi, which is been given after we try to do all the 4 regulative principles, which is no intoxication, no meat eating, no illicit sex, and also no gambling. So, so the first vow that we all take is to chant at least 16 names. Now, Prabhu, sometimes as we are having this materialistic body, sometimes, Prabhu, we feel ill. And during this pandemic state, there are thousands and thousands of Krishna devotees who are also falling sick. Maybe it's not a COVID case, but also due to little of illness like cough and cold. But as we have taken a vow, Prabhu, that we have to at least chant 16 names daily. Now, suppose if we take the example of some pure Suddha Bhaktas, by hook or crook, they are so much inclined with Krishna consciousness that they will always get up, and even if they are feeling very sick, very uneasy, still they will try to complete 16 rounds. Having said that, Prabhu, maybe 1 or 2 rounds they will be chanting with a lot of consciousness. Okay, but the 14 rounds they will chant may not be having that type of full consciousness. They might be thinking of their health conditions and this and that. So, Prabhu, my question is that should we continue to preserve that vow as we have taken, that we have to chant 16 rounds daily, which we have taken, or at least we should concentrate only for 2 rounds? Because 2 rounds, we are totally devoting our senses and consciousness, and other 14 we are not able to do. But is so what we should keep in, so we are having a little dilemma, either to go for 16 as we have taken a vow, or we should only do 2 rounds or 1 rounds, as much as we can have a consciousness to that. Prabhu, this is my question. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, and thank you. I mean, I'll definitely answer this question, but I would also appreciate if devotees ask questions which are little bit relevant to what we have discussed till now. Of course, this would be this would definitely be a relevant question sometime later in our discussion, because we are still in the introduction part only. So, yeah, if we can chant 2 rounds with attention, we should definitely chant 2 rounds with attention. And the 14 rounds, if we are not able to concentrate, we can regretfully, chant those 14 rounds with whatever attention we can muster, because we have taken a vow. So if we cannot muster full attention, but whatever attention we can muster, with that we should try to chant. Okay, Ramesh Shetty Prabhu, I am unmuting you.
Hare Krishna, bro. This is Ranganath Chirandas from Goa.
Yes, Prabhuji.
My question is, we always say 10 offenses while chanting.
Mhm.
Actually, while chanting, the only offense that we commit
Is the
is
11th offense.
inattentive chanting.
Yeah, is it the
Yeah.
11th?
Yeah, but then why do you say that 10 offenses while chanting?
Okay.
These 10 offenses do not occur while chanting.
No, no. No, of course, it's not 10 offenses while chanting the holy name. It is 10 offenses towards the holy name, but their holy name is said to be the representative of Bhakti Devi. Right? So, if Goa temple receives, let's say, a present or an award for the best managed ISKCON temple in the whole of India. And if Ranganath Charan Prabhu goes to receive that award, okay, so that does not mean that award is for you. You are the representative of Goa temple. So in the same way, when we are talking about 10 offenses to the holy name, it is not 10 offenses just to the holy name, but holy name being the prime limb of devotional service. It is offense to Bhakti Devi represented by the holy name. And these are not 10 offenses while chanting the holy name. In fact, these 10 offenses can be committed while chanting also, but mostly it is chanted at other times. It's only the, as you rightly pointed out, the 11th offense is what is committed while chanting the holy name. So in one sense, as I mentioned it in the beginning only, that this is the 10 offenses are towards Bhakti Devi and not exactly not just the holy name. And if these are committed, it will not just affect our holy name, it will affect our practice of all limbs of bhakti only, like that.
Thank you.
Okay. One more question we will take, and then maybe we may have to move ahead, or maybe one or two more questions we'll try to take. Shri Ramya Mataji, I am unmuting you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji, I have a question. Like Kirtan is the topmost, is the Angi. So does Kirtan include?
Your voice is breaking, Mataji. I am not able to hear you clearly.
I'm very sorry, Prabhuji. Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Okay, so it is said that Kirtan is the topmost, it is the Angi. So Kirtan includes the Kirtan, what we do while singing also, right, with the Kartal and everything. So like is Kirtan better than Japa? Like while doing Kirtan, we are more active and alive and we feel the bliss. But while Japa, we feel very sleepy also sometimes. So is half an hour of Kirtan equivalent to half an hour of Japa?
Yeah, definitely, but that does not mean that half an hour you compromise from your 16 rounds. So because 16 rounds is a commitment we do give to chant in our beads. So that commitment we have to do, and further chanting, we can definitely choose to do it in the form of Kirtan rather than Japa. That is perfectly fine, and it is if you can muster more feelings and more attention while doing Kirtan, that is perfectly fine, and you can do it. But 16 rounds is our commitment, so we don't compromise that with Kirtan. That we have to definitely chant in our Japa beads. Is that okay, Mataji? Okay. So Sirisha Dasari Mataji, I am unmuting you. This will be the last question, and then we will move ahead, and then we'll again take more questions.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada. Prabhuji, I have the same question. You said that Kirtan is the topmost out of all the other limbs. But what we heard is hearing is the topmost, right? Usually our devotional service starts with hearing. But now you said Kirtan is the king. I would like to know, hearing is most important, what we learned from so many days.
Yeah, hearing is definitely it. Our devotional process starts with hearing. So in one sense, if you see, hearing is the topmost limb, in the sense hearing empowers all the other limbs with a very important element, which is faith, right? So what we are doing now, we are now discussing that holy name is the topmost, but still we are engaged in hearing only now, right? So none of you are actually disconnecting and going to do kirtan now. You are still engaged in hearing. In fact, in the very beginning of Bhagavatam, Parikshit Maharaj asked what is the best thing to do, what should be chanted, what should be heard, what should be remembered, and in telling that, Srila Shukadeva Goswami says, Tasmat Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Harihi Shrottavya Kirtitavyascha Dhyaya Pudyascha Nityada, he says. Smartavyascha Ichchata Bhayam. He says, hearing, chanting, remembering. These are the three primary ways. And towards the end of that description, in the 11th verse, he says, Harer Namanu Kirtanam, Yoginam Nripanirnetam Harer Namanu Kirtanam. So he establishes of the three, Harinam Sankirtan is the topmost. And we are just 11 verses into the conversation between Parikshit Maharaj and Shukadeva Goswami. And Parikshit Maharaj has just 7 more days to live. And in the beginning of Bhagavatam only, he has established Harinam Sankirtan as the topmost process. But interestingly, Shukadeva Goswami made Parikshit Maharaj to do Shravanam for the next of the 7 days. Shouldn't he have allowed him to do Kirtanam? Right? If you have mentioned and concluded Harinam Sankirtan as the topmost, then you should ideally Shukadeva Goswami should have allowed Parikshit Maharaj to do Harinam Sankirtan for the rest of the 7 days. But he did all the Kirtan and he made Parikshit Maharaj do only Shravan. Right? And Parikshit Maharaj did not have any objection to it, because the point is that, yes, Harinam Sankirtan is very potent, but the potency of the Harinam Sankirtan is to the extent we have faith in performing that limb of bhakti. In this case, Harinam Sankirtan. And to the extent we have faith, to that extent chanting the holy name will be potent, right? So that faith is enhanced by hearing. When we hear the glories of the holy name, when we hear about the importance of avoiding offenses, then our faith increases, and with that enhanced faith, when we chant even one holy name, that becomes very potent. Right? So like they say, so sonar ki ek lohar ki, right? So a goldsmith, with a very small hammer, tick, 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 he keeps on hitting very slowly. But a blacksmith, he takes one big hammer and one shot, and the iron piece breaks into 2, right? So so performing any limb of devotional service without faith is like the goldsmith trying to hit tick, 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 tick. It will have very little effect. But if we do it with endowed with solid faith, then one shot, one chanting the holy name becomes very powerful. And hearing actually empowers chanting with that faith. So therefore, hearing is very important. So actually, we don't see these limbs of devotional service as competing with each other. They actually complement each other, right? When we do deity worship, when we are worshipping the Supreme Lord, it does not decrease our taste for chanting or hearing. right? When we are worshipping the Lord and we developed a relationship with the deity form of the Lord, then we understand, oh, let me chant the names of this person whom I am serving. Let me hear the pastimes of this person whom I am serving. So naturally, deity worship enhances one's taste for hearing and chanting. And similarly, when one chants, when one hears, it enhances one's taste for chanting and deity worship. So all these limbs are actually complementary to each other. So we don't compare them like that. But definitely holy name is very powerful, but it is hearing which empowers that holy name with faith. That is the point. Is that okay, Mataji? Okay, I think we will have to pause here, and I will take few more questions towards the end. We cover little more portions, and then we will take few more questions. Otherwise, we will never be able to complete this chapter, and maybe for 16 weeks we will be discussing the first chapter only. Okay, so let me continue. You can please put down your hands, and I will the next time we open up for Q&A, you can again raise your hands, please. Okay, so now we will, okay, so now we will try to understand. As I mentioned, most of this book Harinam Chintamani discusses only about the first 2 verses of Shikshashtakam, right? So we will take Shikshashtakam, the first 2 verses, and try to see how it is a summary study of this whole book. Okay, so we will take the first verse of Shikshashtakam. You all know this verse. We will chant the verse together. You don't have to unmute yourself. While staying muted, you can chant the verse with me. Cheto darpanamarjanam bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam shreya kairava chandrika vitaranam vidhyavadu jivanam anandambudivardhanam pratipadam purnamrita swadanam sarvatma snapanam param vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. So this verse essentially inspires us to chant the holy name, and it gives various reasons why one should chant the holy name. It gives, in fact, 7 reasons. What are the 7 reasons why one should chant the holy name? Okay, we will see. The first reason is, he says, Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Let there be victory for the chanting of the holy name of Lord Krishna. Why? Why chanting the holy name should be victorious? He says, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. Because the first benefit of chanting the holy name is it can cleanse the mirror of the heart. That is the first benefit. Cheto Darpana Marjanam. What is the second benefit? Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. It stops the miseries of the blazing fire of material existence. Okay. So basically, the first verse of Shikshashtakam describes how step by step we can establish a relationship with Krishna. Actually, there are 7 obstacles which stop us from establishing a relationship with Krishna. And the first verse describes how the holy name one by one removes each of these obstacles. Right? So, Cheto Darpana Marjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. What is the third benefit of chanting the holy name? Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam. Chandrika is moon, and especially here it is the waxing moon. And what does the waxing moon do? Vitaranam. It spreads its cooling moon rays. And when the cooling moon rays fall on the night blooming lily, the night blooming lily is called Kairava. So this is white in color. Okay. So in the spiritual world, the night blooming lily is said to be one of the most beautiful objects. And this night blooming lily blooms when the cooling moon rays fall on the night blooming lily. So the holy name is compared to the moon. The living entity is compared to the night blooming lotus, and the cooling moon rays are the rays of good fortune. So what we will see a little more in detail. The living entity blooms with good fortune when the moon of the holy name touches that living entity. Okay. The third effect is Vidya Vadhu Jivanam. It is the life and soul of all education. What exactly it is, we will discuss little more in detail, right? For now, chanting the holy name is the life and soul of all education. Ananda Ambudhi Vardhanam. Chanting of the holy name of Krishna expands the blissful ocean of transcendental life. It increases the bliss in the person who takes up to the path of chanting the holy name. Okay. Then Sarvatma Snapanam. It gives a cooling effect to everyone. What it is, we will see. Purna Amrita Aswadanam. Pratipadam. Okay. Pratipadam means at every step, it enables one to taste the full nectar. Purna Amrita Aswadanam. Okay. So now these are the 7 benefits of chanting the holy name. So anyone who tries to understand these 7 benefits develops solid faith in chanting, right? So the first verse talks about Shraddha and Sadhu Sangha. Okay. And the second verse talks about Anartha Nivritti. Bhajana Kriya and Anartha Nivritti. Okay. And essentially, the whole book of Harinam Chintamani, most of it talks about Shraddha, Bhajana Kriya and Anartha Nivritti. How you can remove the anarthas in the form of, mostly in the form of offenses. How you can remove them. That's what it talks about. Let's take one by one these various points. First is Cheto Darpana Marjanam. The holy name cleanses the mirror of the heart. So first we have to understand what is Cheto, what is this Cheta, why is it compared to a mirror, and what does it mean to cleanse this mirror. Okay. In order to understand what this Cheto Darpana Marjanam, what is this first benefit of chanting the holy name, we should first understand what is this Cheta and why is it compared to a mirror and what does it mean to cleanse that mirror. We will try to slowly see that point. Okay. So now, in this material world, what is it that binds us? To this material world. Okay. So someone may say sense objects, right? Someone may say our senses. But in reality, if you see, what binds us to this material world are emotions. especially material emotions. So material emotions is what binds us to this material world. So we have to understand, when here the word cheta is used, the word cheta refers to what is called as anta karana. Here it is translated as heart, right? So heart is antakarana. Okay. So the gross heart, okay, I am actually artistically handicapped, so please forgive me. So this is the best heart that I can draw. Okay. So the heart is divided into 4 parts. So I think there is, what do they call it? Auricle, ventricle. So I mean, I am not talking about that. There are 4 parts in our heart in which 4 subtle organs are seated. Okay. So one is called as chitta. Second is called as buddhi. The third is called as mana. And the fourth is called as ahankara. Okay. So chitta, buddhi, mana and ahankara. And what is the role of these 4? The role of antakarana, maybe should I write it in the next slide? So antakaranas convert sensory signals to emotions. Okay. So I will try to explain what it means. Okay. So we come in touch with various sense objects, right? Rupa, rasa, sparsha, shabda and gandha, right? We see form, we smell things, we taste things, we experience the sense of touch, right? And we hear the sound. Okay. So these are called as sensory signals. Okay. And as soon as the sensory signals touch us, it generates some emotions, right? Taste can generate emotions. Like about maybe a couple of years back, I had gone to visit one of my cousin sisters, and she served me prasadam, and I ate it, and the taste sounded very familiar. This was the first time I was eating something cooked by my cousin sister. So I asked her, this taste sounds very familiar. You know, there was suddenly, I was feeling very joyful. And she told, as soon as I came to know that you were visiting, I called your mother and took the recipe of, she had made some chutney. Okay. It tasted exactly like what my mother would make. And immediately when, it created some emotion, right? So, how did it create that emotion? Because I had already tasted my mother's chutney, and the remembrance of that, the impression of that taste is stored in the form of vasanas. So these vasanas are past impressions. Okay. So these they are stored in the form of past impressions. So now, as soon as I come in touch with a familiar material stimulus, okay, these are like stimulus. So stimulus can be in the form of form, taste, smell, touch, and sound. Okay, so form is experienced by the eyes, taste is experienced by the tongue, smell is experienced by the nose, touch is experienced by the skin, and sound is experienced by the ears. And many times they can generate emotions, right? So you may be walking on the road and suddenly, and you are seeing many people whose body is made of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And suddenly you see the form of your friend, school friend, whom you are seeing after 15 years. It suddenly generates an emotion of joy, right? So it generates the emotion of, joy, you can say, or sometimes you may see a person whom you hate, and he is walking right in front of you, the same form, and it may generate a sense of an emotion of horror or disgust, right? Or sometimes you are sitting at home and chanting, and suddenly someone is frying some samosas in the kitchen, and the fragrance of that samosa enters your nose, and immediately you are joyful, you start smiling. So how is it that the form or smell or sound has the capacity to generate emotions? How the sensory signals are transformed into emotions, and it is these emotions which bind us to this material world. This is a big science, and this is described in the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So in the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is mentioned that these 4 antakaranas, chitta, buddhi, mana, and ahankar, they work in conjunction with the past impressions. Okay, let's take the example of the frying of samosa. So as soon as the smell of the samosa enters your nose, okay, as soon as the smell enters your nose, right, the sense of smell, immediately chitta becomes very active. So what is the role of chitta? Awareness of a familiar stimulus. Okay, so the chitta has access to the past impressions, vasanas. So as soon as the smell enters the nose, chitta says, oh, I know this. This is a familiar stimulus. I know this. What is it? And immediately it activates buddhi. And buddhi goes back to the past records, the vasanas, and it gets so buddhi gets the details. Okay. Oh, the stimulus is smell. Okay. And it is the smell of samosa. And in a few minutes, it will land on your plate. Okay, that is what buddhi refers to, the past records. And then mind has access to the emotions, feelings. What was the feeling of eating a samosa? So the mind has access to that, the feelings part of the database. And then the false ego or ahankar connects these emotions and feelings to the self. How did I feel when I ate a samosa last time? So it connects those feelings and emotions to the self, and then suddenly an emotion is generated, the emotion of joy, the emotion of eagerness, right? And then that emotion binds us to this material world. Okay. So, and all of this, it takes a microsecond for that smell to enter our nose and our flashing a smile, right? It takes just a microsecond. The moment that smell enters, within a second, we actually become joyous. A joyful emotion is created. But within that 1 second, chitta, buddhi, mana, and ahankar, they all are working in conjunction with the past vasanas, past impressions. And they are generating this emotion. And this emotion is what binds us to this material world. Okay. There is a reason why we are discussing all of these things. And as and when we progress, it will become more and more clear. Okay. So, this thing is described in the Bhagavatam as 5 aspects of ignorance. Okay. The 5 aspects of ignorance are described in Srimad Bhagavatam as avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, and abhinivesh. Okay. So what is this avidya? So avidya is what is mentioned here as vasanas. So this is what is called as avidya. Avidya means past experience of enjoyment or suffering. But why is it called as avidya, ignorance? It is called as avidya, ignorance, because soul cannot enjoy matter and soul cannot suffer due to matter. But these past impressions gives one a feeling of, oh, how I enjoyed that samosa. Oh, how I had a terrible experience eating that hot samosa and my tongue got burnt because of that. So, while the soul cannot enjoy matter and it cannot suffer also due to matter, but these past impressions give one the feeling that I can suffer due to coming in touch with matter and I can enjoy due to coming in touch with matter. That is why these past vasanas or impressions are called as avidya. And the soul has access to the past impressions which have been accumulated over last many lifetimes. Right? So, let's say in my past life, I was a cow. Okay. So, therefore, so now, even though I was a cow in my past life, which means I must have enjoyed green grass in my past life. But now, as a human being, if I feel extremely hungry, will I start salivating looking at green grass? Most unlikely, right? Why? Just maybe 40 years back, I was a cow and I was relishing green grass. And if you say that I have access to impressions or vasanas which I accumulated over many lifetimes, why is it that I can't pacify my hunger by eating green grass? That is accomplished by this asmita aspect of ignorance. What does this asmita do? It gives access only to human-like impressions. Okay, and it shields impressions accumulated in other species. Okay, so that is why, so that if I start salivating looking at green grass, And if instead of a male getting attracted, a male human being getting attracted to a female human being, if a male human being gets sexually attracted to a female cow, then he will have severe identity crisis, right? Even though 40 years back he was a bull or a cow, whatever it may be, but still those impressions and experiences have to be shielded so that one can identify with the current body that he is occupying. So that is accomplished by this asmita aspect of ignorance. Okay, so now forget about asmita. In our current discussion, we will not discuss asmita anymore. Maybe later we can discuss. But this past experience of vasanas, it leads to next what is called as raga. If you had an enjoyable experience, so enjoyable experience leads to attachment, which is called as raga. And a disgusting experience leads to hatred, which is called as dvesha, right? But both this raga and dvesha are dependent on past experience, a memory of past experience, which is what we saw as avidya. But this raga and dvesha do not remain raga and dvesha, they become abhinivesh. Abhinivesh means absorption. So absorption means what we like, we are constantly thinking about how I can get more of it. And what I don't like, we are constantly meditating upon how I can get away from what I don't like. So in this way, abhinivesh means absorption. Okay, so these are the 5 aspects of ignorance. So so this avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha and abhinivesh, when it acts together, it generates what is called as emotions. So what this chitta, buddhi, mana and ahankar generate is this avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha and abhinivesh, which manifests emotions, which is what binds us to this material world. Okay, it's 8:55 now. We have 5 more minutes. I thought I could complete this at least Chetodarpana Marjanam today, but I think we will have to take this Chetodarpana Marjanam. We will continue this discussion next week, but we still have 5 minutes. Let me see at least if I can take few questions. Jayadeep and Rusha, I am unmuting you. You can please ask.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. So, Prabhuji, thank you very much for conducting this session in so much details. Prabhuji, I've got one confusion, Prabhuji. Like when we are saying Vashana is something which is giving the past impressions or holding the past impressions. So
Vasana is past impressions.
Okay, so is it similar to samskar that we also?
Yeah. Samskaras, vasanas, more or less same thing. Yeah.
Okay. And Prabhuji, one more thing, Prabhuji. Like, so what is Chetu referring to? Is it Chitta or is it all the 4 factors?
Okay.
When we are saying Chetu Darpana.
Yeah, good question. I will just have to address this. This is a very important question that you asked. Actually, many times the word chitta in the Shastras refer to various things. Chitta can refer to just chitta, that which is discussed here as one of the 4 antakaranas. But many times the word chitta refers to all 4 antakaranas together. So the whole unit which generates that material emotions through sensory signals that is called as chitta many times. Okay. Sometimes the word chitta also refers to mind. So these are the various ways in which the word chitta is used in the scriptures. But here, when we are talking about Cheto Darpana Marjanam, it refers to these 4 antakaranas. All 4. It does not just refer to chitta. It refers to all 4.
Okay, Prabhuji. So Prabhuji, like in Yoga Sutra, it is said like yoga means chitta vritti
Nirodha.
nirodha. So it is something deeper than that. Can we see?
Chitta vritti nirodha is the same thing. Because as we discussed, it is material emotions which bind us to this material world. And the role of chitta is to take material sensory signals and generate material emotions. So chitta vritti nirodha. Vritti means their actions. Nirodha means to stop. So chitta vritti nirodha means to stop the action of this antakarana, which is to generate material emotions. So how that chitta vritti nirodha is accomplished, we will see it next week, actually.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Apara Karuna Sindhu Prabhu, I am unmuting you, Prabhu. You can please ask Prabhu. Apara Karuna Sindhu Prabhu. Okay. Rama Madhavi Mataji, I am unmuting you because Apara Karuna Sindhu Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam.
Dandavat.
Prabhu, Anarth Nivritti. So it takes a lifetime for Anarth Nivritti. Can you throw some light, Prabhu? How can we try to overcome those anarthas? I mean, we are full of anarthas, even if we are chanting and we are into devotional service.
Yeah, that's the rest of the book about Mataji. You will have to wait for the next 16 weeks to cover that.
Right, Prabhu. Right.
That's the whole book is about that. So we will be discussing this in detail. Okay, Madhav Chandra Prabhu, I am unmuting you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Prabhuji.
Dandavat Prabhu.
Prabhuji, thank you for such a wonderful presentation. Prabhuji, one small doubt on this. It's a little technical only. So this vasanas, you said, right, there is so much of vasanas are generated. It is there from different species of life.
Yeah.
And then in a particular body, only we have access to those particular, forms.
Correct.
And then kind of I heard like when somebody goes to hell, the suffering is nothing but training to accept a new body. Because we are now, for example, if I'm a human now, if according to my karma, I have to end up in a tree body, I will not accept it easily. So the training, the punishment which happens in hell is to make my mind to accept the tree body.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the time it gets shaped, like only those kind of vasanas or things are presented. And I'm just trying to understand, trying to connect that dot and this dot here. So
yeah. In one sense, the certain qualities and abilities which are needed to exist in that particular species, that training one gets in hell, but that's not the only purpose of hell. In hell, we also actually have to undergo the punishment for various misdeeds that we might have committed in human form of life. But of course, in going through some of these various kinds of sufferings, we do develop certain kinds of abilities also for our experiencing many subhuman species that we may. Just like I studied in a military school, and certain kinds of disciplining and all that that I went through there. Some of the things have been very favorable for my devotional life, and some of the things which I experienced there is not so favorable for my spiritual life, like that. But certain kinds of training, even though directly it was not for it was that training I did not receive for spiritual life, but having taken up to spiritual life, some of those trainings are coming in quite handy. So similarly, in the hell also, the primary purpose is not to train them for other species, but in experiencing those punishments, certain qualities are developed by that particular living entity, which come in handy when they take up to subhuman species like that.
Okay, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, one more thing. The word chitta also proper translates as contaminated consciousness, right?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, he does that. So there, the consciousness refers to this whole antakarana.
Okay.
It is not just the chitta.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay. One last question, and then we will end today's discussion. Dr. Rohini Iyer, I am unmuting you. You can please ask, and then we will end today's discussion.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Sometimes, like when we start chanting without knowing all these things, we are chanting better. But as we start like learning more, it appears as if we are on a path of like attaining some perfection in chanting, rather than because all these words pop up in the mind when we actually sit and chant.
Okay, actually, we have not heard anything in one sense. We have not yet heard. The actual thing we are going to hear will be from the. Of course, I should have ideally completed at least this Chetodarpana Marjanam, because I have left it in between. It just looks like some unrelated technical detail. But once we start next week's session, we will complete this section, and it will make little more sense as to how chanting the holy names actually helps us destroy these material emotions and material vasanas, which is actually binding us to this material world. That way, the whole thing will come a complete circle, and it will help us actually develop an attraction for the holy name. The whole purpose of this description is when I complete this description, it should ideally help us develop a positive appreciation for and an attraction to the holy name, so that when we sit to chant, rather than distracting us, it will ideally help us develop more appreciation for the holy name. But unfortunately, due to lack of time, we are in the middle of that topic. We are ending today's discussion. Hopefully, when we start next week, it will give a slightly better picture.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Okay, so I think we will have to end here. I'm really sorry I could not take questions. So that is the problem with such a big group. But still, I cannot just keep on speaking and not take questions also. So kindly excuse me. Maybe we will try to see how we can. Maybe at the end of this whole thing, maybe after 2-3 sessions, we might have a non-Wednesday allotted just for Q&A. Okay, so please don't worry if some of your questions have not been addressed. So I am open to having alternate sessions, non-Wednesday sessions, where we can just do Q&A for this whole thing. So, but for that, I think maybe we will cover 3-4 sessions, and after 3 or 4 sessions, we will allot one session just for Q&A. Maybe 2-3 hours also we could do that. So if your question has not been taken, please don't feel bad. And it is practically impossible to take everyone's question. So we will end here, and we will take this discussion again next Wednesday at 7 o'clock sharp. So thank you all very much for your patient listening. And more importantly, thank you all very much for your enthusiastic participation also. Otherwise, it would be so boring if I am the only person who is talking. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Shri Harinam Chintamani ki jai. Hare Krishna.